Testing the chat. Okay, it's moving. I got the chat working. Jesus, that sucked. Not know Safari just does not work with Facebook streaming, and that's all I have on this super old MacBook that I use for chat when I stream to my Twitch. So that was a little hiccup, but now we're good to go. Cool. So we can jump right into the intro. Thank you guys all for tuning in, by the way. This is going to be sick. So, first thing you hear is that iconic Anthony Fantano sample, which we just fucking sausaged. Because we repurposed this for some basses and got a lot of presence out of it. The quality wasn't the best. We did use a bit of manipulator in this project right off the rip. I know it's on some of these like war chants and stuff. This is when the Kashmir stuff was pretty fresh, so we were peppering a lot of that on. The hair flip, I feel you, Kompany. You know what it is. I'm getting this hair cut soon. So, processing wise on this vocal, this is all going through the ambience group, which just has a slight bit of compression on it, just to make sure that this is going into the sidechain bus and then the master with no red, which is like normally not an issue for me, but I do some bus compression from time to time to squeeze together all the elements if anything is popping out too much. So it's really just super washed out. See what we have on the manipulator here. I don't know why it sometimes is coming through. Probably the reverb automation, so we're just super wet. I'm ducking a lot of the high end. It looks like this is sort of like a custom washout rack we made just for the vocal in the intro right here. So reverb, taming a bit of the 1500 hertz, rolling off all the high end. Some ping pong delay, and even then some bass clef washout after that. Just super stretched out. Double time. And it sounds like it's the auto pan. So besides that, the only other elements we have in the intro here are the ride and just some drones from the Kashmir pack. No effects on them, just some gain staging. And some rides. More Kashmir stuff. Manipulator's awesome. I use it a lot for like respaces too. Sort of like how I would use a frequency shifter and turn down the dry wet and have it like moving the harmonics a bit, and you can actually get some really cool movement. Maybe I can demonstrate later if we end up making some basses from scratch. Not sure what we're going to have time for because we're going into Rapture after this. Some really cool project files here. Then we have the thick. Very subtle. But effective. It's all about the ambience here. I may be missing some contact banks. Some exhale stuff. I don't think it's that big of a deal. As far as like exhale goes, I put it on the demo timeout. See, I don't have my external hard drive plugged in right now. But I chill. Bruh. Drop an F in the chat, because it seems we've hit a hiccup. I might have to close the project file. That's one bummer about opening up super old projects is dumb stuff like that happens. And then it just soft locks me out of the project. Like it would just sit there spinning, trying to log me into my old contact library. Yes. But yeah, as far as Exhale goes, I just put it on the loop modes and put it in key and just start jamming and frequency shift things up and down. It's really easy to riff out melodic ideas if you use stuff like that. Only one more day of garbage like this until I'm producing on my PC. Very, very sick of MacBook. And this is like the i9, top of the line, 32 gigs of RAM, and it's just not enough. It gets thermal throttled right away. Chat looking like Timmy Turner. Pablo asked, how important will you consider the musical theory aspect when it comes to producing bass music? For me, it's rather important, especially when it comes to layering, kind of implementing. I should put my Discord on streamer mode. I implement a lot of fifths, sevenths, ninths, stuff like that. And obviously for writing an intro, music theory, even just a base knowledge of it is super helpful. I don't think you need to learn to the point where you can perform and be super confident in your music theory, but just knowing when, applications like those are useful, that's where it's at. So back to the intro. I'm going to delete this cursed exhale. Be gone! So yeah, we have an exhale here, and it's probably going something like doo doo doo. Big old reverse impact. I always do this just to keep a lot of my effects really cohesive. This is when the track starts to get really fun. So we have 3 big bass layers on this impact. Top layer, which is carrying most of the weight, especially on the low end. It says contact, but this was definitely made in serum with Woolly. Something we had to freeze and flatten because it's like a lot of MIDI going on here, but a really basic long bass with some pitch mod. I'm pretty sure it's something just with some saw waves and a little bit of FM, notch filtering. Sort of like a more wide washed out layer. With some yo man, it sounds like some some fast feedback chorus. And then we actually stretched out the vocal for Anthony Fontano. Sounds so ridiculous soloed, but the low end of the bass is driving through the master really hard as well. Just like kind of clips it all out together. It's cool because it has some flutter to it, almost like an oscillation on the vocal from how stretched it out. The grains like gave it a sort of like... We actually furthered that rhythm in the second part by automating on this auto pan and automating the rate by the frequency. So we just have this set to hertz and we get something like this. And we copied the same exact auto pan onto these serums here. So altogether, it's very cohesive. You can hear there's some reverb tails from some automation there. Do you have structure, for example, 16 bar intro, 32 bar drops, 12 transition? I tend to reference something with really good energy. I feel like arrangement's one of those things you can very, very heavily reference without it being like an obvious ripoff of something. Just find a track with really good energy and, take it from there. I even will sometimes just block out like little MIDI blocks like these. Full screen, please. Hello? Ableton's being super bitchy tonight. Like I'll block out like MIDI blocks like this and just do intro and then duplicate and be like intro plus drums and pad. Like I'll write a song like this and then go in and like fill in the puzzle pieces, if that makes sense. That's a really good way to do that. Again, don't be afraid to reference arrangement. It's not like you're copying. Every arrangement's been done. Cool. Back into these breakdown bits. So there's not much that's happened so far. Some more missing samples, which is a bummer. It's just claps and arps like this guy. We're just missing some stuff that's really just stems from Woolly, so I can't really break it down much anyways, but all the juicy stuff in the drop is there. Some exhausts, airlocks, little cool super reverbed out transition effects. I use these a lot. These kind of, I'm using some up here as well. Oh, that's a cashmere airlock. I use a lot of this SF DS. There's like space stuff. Very cool sample pack. I don't even know where I got it when stuff was being passed around in Icon. A lot of ambience. Really cool, like energy bursty sounds. You might have heard a lot of these tucked away in my music. Little Foley stuff. A lot of panning going on here just to give it a lot of space and movement creative.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer in every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Creative shit. Some flattened reverb so that we can reverse the reverb into the hit. I believe this is just these basses together with the reverb printed. Looks like almost its own little impact. So again, stretching out the vocal. Lots of effects here. I noticed one thing when I worked with Wooly, even when he streams and works on his own stuff, he'll use a lot of like stacks of risers and a lot of stuff to keep the energy going. And I think mostly we were getting it out of the energy of the vocal because like it's just slammed. We can hear this with no processing, but I don't think it's that much better. We're honestly just taming all the crazy like 3 to 5K hertz and just crazy transposing it in the envelope up an octave or so. Some other elements we have going on here. A nice ride. Classic. All the basses from the intro carry over as well. So instead of having a bunch of different risers going on, like I was kind of just saying, it's a couple like really hefty things carrying the weight. A couple rave stabs washed out. A lot of bass clef washout going on here. I don't even know what this is. It sounds like shit. Yep. So knowing me, this is a flattened version of the entire mids group that I'm washing in. So let's see if we can even hear that in the middle. I always feel like this is really important for me to kind of really make that transition of blending the drop and the intro. If you're ever having trouble like meshing the two together, this is always a really good way to start. Your layering is crazy. Thank you. It's gotten worse. Like I layer so much more just to get one sound. Like this is kind of when my layering started to get out of hand. And we'll get into it. A lot of the stuff is flattened, but a lot of the patches are in here frozen, so we'll do what we can. Tension guitar. Just little riffs, basic, a lot of basic effects stuff. This is another really important is the Jaws kind of semitone cashmere horns. I think a lot of the reason the washout is not having it too muddy is because inside of the bass the bass clef washout rack, as you increase the washout, it filters out the lows. So I don't know what this actual pack is called. I have it called I have it in a pack called Space Stuff. So I don't know if that helps at all, but look up like this specific sample or something. Machine airlock close 1 and maybe it'll come up on Splice. Or like something more specific, spaceship flyby. Like search for that. Maybe you'll be able to find the pack. When do you know when to stop layering? So if you're ever A-Bing and turning off a layer that you're kind of questionable about and you don't really notice what's happening, that's a good way to know when you're layering too much or your layer isn't useful. Another way to know if your layer isn't really too useful is try to find that main sound that you want all of the center of attention on, and then you're kind of like accenting and emphasizing and creating more harmonics for the sound with the layers, rather than trying to like distract the listener by adding other sounds. So you want to be sure that the sound you're layering around, you're not pulling away from that main timbre. So figure out where in the frequency spectrum that your main sound is occupying. Like, for example, let's just pick a random one here in the drop. We're kind of skipping ahead, but it's super helpful for this. Which, luckily, I nailed the first layer. Endless Smile. This always gets stuck. So, say I want to layer around this. This is already kind of a printed version of a bunch of layers, but I would kind of avoid, being a lot around 1K, and it's a really full kind of sound, but I also take that same approach to stereo. So I'll have one really mono layer, and I'm going to add something else that's a bit more stereo, and it's all about just finding that balance and ear training, stuff like that. But things will get cluttered if you're not layering properly, and it's just, I have a very, I like to say it's like almost like a dartboard kind of workflow where I throw a shitload of darts at the board, and eventually something's going to stick. And the more darts you throw, the more likely it's going to be that something hits that bullseye, So drums are really simple here. It starts off with just the kick, and then we start to bring in the snare. And then, the build-up progresses. Nice little kick. I don't really know if I made this or if it's an old one. I have a lot of kick loops. If I type in comp drum, or comp firewall, firewall drums. Like, I always print all my kick snare loops so I can re-reference their loudness or even EQ match them to the kick snare I'm working on. That's perfect timing. I was just talking about kicks. I'm reading a question about kicks. I don't process them too much. No, I will when I'm making them, but there's so many good kick samples that don't need any processing at all. Boom library sci-fi designed. That makes sense. Boom library is the shit. How do I not make my layers clash? You can do EQ matching with Pro Q3 and sidechain the sounds into each other. It'll flare up red where there's overlapping frequencies. It's kind of an advanced technique to show right now. It might take me a bit. It's something you can YouTube and find super easy. So besides that, I'll compress things together so they're really cohesive. That pack is like $239. Jesus. So you guys all get this stuff. Any questions on the build-up? Let's see if there's any master automation. I usually will filter out the low end. Bam. So up to 122 hertz or so. This is another reason all that washout isn't getting really muddy. The more I'm sucking things out during the build-up, the more impactful the sub is going to come in on the one of the drop. So that's all we have going on here. I really have a simple master chain on this one. I don't know what I was doing with this EQ cut. I don't do shit like this ever. Put on your pirate hat. How do you go about writing your drops as arrangement and counter melodies? What layering goes into your basses? And what do you do to the counter melodies to complement the main melody? Both writing and sound design. It's honestly so much like what I said before of the dartboard method. Your best bet for stuff like that, as far as dubstep goes, is to beatbox anything idea-wise you have rhythmically, or flow with a patch until you get an idea going. But I beatbox things into my voice memo and drag them in and kind of recreate it step by step. And I have a very tedious workflow. I work one sound at a time, left to right, and I don't move on until that sound is perfectly mixed and layered, and it's hard for me to move on. All right, so let's move into the drop. We have the damn boy. He's thick. And obviously this lands right on the one, which I think is a big part of the energy of this track. And just to make the one pop a little harder, we actually have some parallel Fantano. One on the left and one on the right. I don't know why, but all together. Another big thing I noticed right off the rip is the glass break, which is a patented Woolly. And then we have a little triplet fill. It's just a bunch of sword samples, I think. So this bass on the one, this is a Woolly bass. I'm sure you've heard him use this a few times. Kilohertz delay. Weird. I don't think this is used at all. Maybe in a transition of some sort. Okay, good talk. Thank you, Kilohertz, for doing nothing. Banished. Banished from the stream. As far as this composition went, I don't think there was any beatboxing. I think we did get to this part, and I mean, it's really simple. It's wop, wop, wop. It's just the semitone thing. But I think we just started with a cool downbeat. I started messing with some like triplet-y stuff on the fill. I use a lot of my glitches for stuff like this. Filtering this in, so Comp Glitch 1, 2018. So even if I just type that, it's like I have so many glitches in my... So these were all made in like Buff Eater or Volume or Shaper Box, Portal. I always go in these glitch like rabbit hole sound design sessions. They're really crazy fun for me. Very granular shit. I'll just take a bunch of bass one shots, throw them in and start stretching and mangling and stuff, and then use them for bits like these. They don't sound that useful when you just like listen to them, but there's that Woolly fill right there with some filtering. Some more glitch layers underneath. This one's like a little more sharp. A mono sword sample. And a whoosh sample. So, and then a war chant on the one as well. So all together we have this. Yeah, my folder is just a bottomless abyss of like shit that I don't know what to do with. Woolly. Is this the bass? This is something completely different, but I guess we'll break it down later. Yeah, looks like that's every bass so far. I can cover the sub really quick. We just have a root note sub here. I'm cutting this all off at like 86 hertz, which is... I normally let the second harmonic breathe a lot more in the most recent stuff I've been working on, but I think I'm letting a little bit more of the low mids through on the mid rack. So hence the steep cut. When beatboxing, are you mouthing the rhythm and also how you it would be sound design? It's really embarrassing, but I'll just do something like pew wat to boom to and then I'll go and like recreate that as well as I can. Like, and then I can kind of like get wiggle room to mess with the timbre as much as possible. And normally I'll reference something like that and start getting ideas as the sounds are fitting in rather than like actually recreating the beatbox. It's more just about getting the juices flowing as far as like motifs and phrasings go, and just, you know, listening to a bunch of other shit that might inspire you before you're kind of doing a super creative like motif writing session, which are the most intimidating writing sessions to me, because more often than not, you know, something won't happen and you'll feel bad about yourself. But like at the end of the day, if you attempted to write and you sat down and you worked, and even if you made a sound and it didn't work and it's shitty, you like went through the process, and that's a win. That's a big W in my book. And then here we go. Next bass. I have this saved so I can actually pull this up. So when I say Stompy remake, this is kind of a version of me remaking a sound that I've used a lot, which we're going to go over in Rapture. Rapture, Stomp, Skullcrack are all kind of the same style of sound design. And there's like 4 different variations of this, which is something I stress all the time, is to just save a lot of ADGs, save a lot of full process racks. You can even drag over and save the ALS of this from the project file and pull it into a track you're working on. Say I have a issue with the mids I'm working on. I can pull in this Stompy remake and be like, this worked in Thick Boy at this loud a volume, so let me A/B it with the bass I'm stuck on and see maybe I'm missing a certain frequency spectrum or something. So let's get into some sound design. Really curious about your snare processing and how you find the right volume level for it. I'll reference like a really well mixed down track of like Excision or something. I'm soft clipping the master with Clip Shifter, I believe. And I have it turned down just a bit so the stream's perfect level wise. All right, Stompy remake. D sharp. Drop this a few octaves. It's probably going to sound a lot different because I always fuck with the timbre of something. Oh. Hello. What's going on? Oh, Ableton crashed. Woo! Yes. Yes. So I normally will get like, I don't know, sometimes I can go a session with no crashes. Sometimes I'll get like completely locked out of the project. Like it'll just do this over and over again until I have to go find a backup. So annoying. How helpful was Icon? I'm applying for the spring quarter and I want to know what to really expect. For me, it was massively helpful, but it was also like in a time where there wasn't things like Defier or YouTube tutorials. There weren't very many of them, so yeah, we're back. Mac Gang for the lose. Forgot to save. What's up, Wales? What's good, man? We're just having some crashes, dude. Yeah, I've lost like the coolest patches I've ever made from crashes like these. I'm also excited to have Harmer and Vocodex. With the fear of crashing in Ableton's uncertainty, how often do you save and how often do you lose progress on a track? Not often enough and very often. But it's never like too much progress. It's never like where I'm like, fuck this, I'm done. But I think adding a fully processed serum in here might not have been the best idea. Yeah, and it did the preset. So maybe we can just skip over this one, but I guarantee you it was something really simple, like let's just see if I can recreate it real quick. Third party, I really like these Ableton Live 10 wavetable. The wavetable synth they added into Live 10, I actually use these wavetables in Serum all the time. But I believe this is something a little sharper. That sounds like octave 0. That's weird. B1. Oh, okay. Dude, my Ableton won't go full screen either. So annoying tonight. This was also a project I made in Live 9 and had to like save it as a Live 10 thing. So a lot of these sounds and like my main sounds are pretty simple, basic shape FM stuff with like most of the high end taking out by bandpass filtering and just really pushing the low mid resonances on the bandpass filter. Something around here, usually. So we can try and quickly recreate something like that. Quiet. Sometimes I'll drive the sub like direct out and distort it, but not in this case. But it's really blown out here. So there goes that endless smile again. Where is it? This damn plugin, man. What is a good alternative for FL users that's somewhat similar to Serum? Serum's in FL, or Serum's a third-party VST, so you can add it to FL. But other than that, I know you have Harmor and Citrus, or Citrus, whatever it's called. I really want to get this patch open, but I don't want to risk it. These are the main bases here, as far as the motif goes. I think it was this guy. A bunch of different versions of these kind of printed into one version of audio. I think these are like a lot of the timbres coming from Yo Man. And I'm just static the dry wet, but I had to make a mono layer for this because the Yo Man takes out so much of the mono. It just makes things ridiculously wide and messy, but like in a way that if you can tame it, it's tasteful. What do we have going on here? We'll go through the post-processing really quick. Just some more filtering. Phase notch. Really subtle. Trash 2, probably the add muscle preset. Oh, double stages. So it's actually not doing much either. This version of OTT I have called OTT Weird that looks like all upward. Oh no, the comments aren't scrolling again. All right, we're good. Yeah, the granulator in granulizer in FL is amazing. Cool. Some overdrive, clip shifter, tiny bit of phaser, really simple EQ. I'm not using the ozone. This is just triggering the Serum effects to use the same MIDI for the filtering. And let's check out the patch. Any hidden gems you use besides Serum and Phase Plant? Razor. This is the most simple sound. It's just like it's mostly off the sync and the flange filter, so. I'm using this second one that's more on timbre based, cutoff, sync, wavetable position, and the frequency of this notch filter, or this peak, which is interesting. So that kind of allows me to just double click here and you can see all these points from where I was kind of maybe adjusting the timbre. Does the phaser not mess with the mono compatibility? This is the stereo layer, and then I have like a super mono comb filtery layer, and I believe eventually we just kind of like, there's just so many bases going on. Let's try and break them down. So these together, I believe are like these two. But like the timbre is like super fucked with in the Serum, and like it's a lot of just messing with this position of this LFO to get like a tone out of it. And then some more Yo Man, it looks like. So let's check out the post-processing once we have it flattened. It's just a really messy project file. How do you know when the 100 to 200 hertz region needs to be cut or boosted? You just got to hear that boxy, muddy sound. And it's a lot of just like, if you're able to, like, for example, I have a lot of these Neuro basses that I make that are like crazy aggressive sounds. Just send this directly to the sidechain bus. A lot of the times I just will go in and like, see how rumbly it is. If it's like really muddy, those kind of frequency, that kind of frequency content is going to just take up so much headroom. Let's see. What do we have here? Maybe this is one of the main sounds as well. This is like another mid mono layer, which is just like a super. No FM going on. A lot of voices though, which is why it's like probably destroying my CPU. I'm gonna delete that. Save us the trouble. Because there's the flattened version of it. Sounds pretty clean. See right here? This was probably sounding a little bit like boxy and muddy. And when it comes to layering, you can't stack that much of anything around 100. Like, I really am careful of like this low mid stuff when I'm stacking a lot of layers. I'll usually have one layer that's really prominent there if I'm letting it breathe. I'm not affecting the high end on this OTT. Just kind of squeezing the mids up. Another trash. I mostly would use, when I was using trash back in the day, I was mostly using the subtle preset add muscle and turning down the dry wet. Some even more notching here. And then the reduce ambience preset just to tighten it. Take out all those tails. And then we have like a yoinky kind of like background layer. I'm using a flanger preset called Hearing Voices. Mega donk. So I think it's these three are the main layers for this particular part. Some more offbeat stuff. Let's hear these. Oh, this is a Wooly thing. I love this trick. He'll take some of the main basses and put Serum Effects with a downsampled like bandpass and like some cool like delay throw, washout stuff. The Yo Man's just automating on and off. So this is a really cool background layer actually, and it's cranked. Super loud. A lot of high end here too, so this is actually a really cool layer. It lands on the kicks and snares and gives it a lot of like... Hold on, chat's not scrolling again. When you print these to audio, do you print them with effects to an empty track or without effects? I print them with effects and then I put more effects. Any tips for getting over a writer's block, getting ideas? I'd say make genres you haven't made before. Just get yourself to go through the actions of producing. Usually helps a lot. Usually writer's block is more like being too intimidated to move on with something. Like even if you're making shit, just keep going. Try and have a fun session where you make something as bad as possible and then try to like salvage it and make a song out of it. So every layer soloed. So every other three, we have another bass that comes in here, which is the stompy. So 36. Check out this last serum. This could be the one. I think this is one of the main layers too. And I think we're just pitching the oh, it does look like it's okay. So I'm actually doing the motif of the transposition of womp womp in MIDI or in the clip here. It's just doing the one semitone simple. Another same processing chain here. Very similar patch, I'm sure. Yeah, making bad music is hilariously fun too. So we're getting all the tone here off of the comb, the flange filter. But you can see, again, I map everything that would affect the timbre to this second LFO, and then I just go to town with this. It's kind of like the same thing as having a macro knob here, but I just like the feel of being able to like automate it and it sits where it is. So it's definitely this patch, I think. But like cleaned up and tightened it with the right timbre. You know, it's just really hard to recreate this workflow of like messing with the sound and resampling it a million times and then finding that one cut you like and just working the rest with audio, which is like really what I used to do. I don't do that as much, but. So I have these patches here, thankfully. I've used these again in Firewall. This is a really cool patch I use like phase verb on. Firewall, mids, Firewall. Let's see. I know it's in here. Maybe not. But either way, I basically took these sounds here. And this is called Komp Cool. Komp Cool. So let's just rack all this post-processing and turn it off. Again, I think almost all of the timbre comes from the Yo Man here. Which I'm surprised we didn't have a lot of mono compatibility issues, because the Yo Man fucks with mono compatibility if you have the dry wet static. So without post-processing, with post-processing, let's break it down one at a time. Oh, the Yo Man is a lot cleaner on this one because I'm actually using this rack I made where the lows go through clean. Soloing the lows through a multiband, setting the frequency cutoff on this low mid crossover knob on my macro, just right clicking and kind of setting it on the map. So the top mids go through the Yo Man, and the low mids stay super clean, which helps a lot with the mono compatibility. So one at a time here. EQ, general shaping, rolling off the mega highs. Super small room. Upward compression. Copy these settings if you want. Overdrive. Great. I love overdrive. Phaser that does nothing. There's that crazy nastiness from the Yo Man on the sides. Just bringing all the, I don't know, what width and fullness to it. Mega donk. Very subtle, again. Kind of taming these low mids. Another Yo Man. This one's for throws. So if I keep the feedback super high, I like to automate it up for like sort of a reverb throw effect. Do it a little more aggressive. Why? Oh, higher feedback. So yeah. I'll turn that off for now, and then clip shifter. Just to really slam it. Like 11 dB, I'm just clipping it. It's dying. Let's get into the patch. So, the voicing is fucking me. When it doesn't really do much, I'm doing the zero random. I think it's really just not doing shit. So I have a saw wave kind of bent with the bend minus, up 3 octaves. I don't know why I opted to use the semitones here. Maybe because I wanted to be able to shuffle through some variations if I wanted to try the 7th here. Not very big difference. Maybe the FM amount is so small. The flange filter, again, the same technique where a lot of the stuff that I'm getting timbre from is on a separate LFO. So I can kind of, you know, fuck with it like this.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
It's really just this phase verb table. I like this table a lot. But these are the kind of wavetables I'll avoid when they have a lot of high-end frequency content. I love starting with really thick mid basses and taking a lot of the high end out, which gives me that room to slam it through OTTs and clip it really hard without it getting like aggressively, you know, giving me ear fatigue and shit. Getting some more added peaks through the filter in the tube distortion. I'm sorry if I'm going through this really quick. It's just we're already at like, we're already like pretty far ways into this one project, and we still have to do Rapture. So yeah, I got some resamples of this boy. Yeah, really just coming a lot from the high notch too. You hear that nasty like drone of like. Disperser's very worth getting. It's very cheap. It works like an all-pass filter. It has like phase pinching kind of shit. It's really sick for glitchy sound design too. Speaking of glitches, I have a glitch layered here. Kind of like a transient. Really subtle. Really subtle. A lot of my layering's like that. Some reverse reverb. It's got like a tape stop to it. I believe I just did that in here in the clip. Just some more cuts from Wooly shit. Yeah. More sword swipes. I love sword swipes. This is one of those samples from one of these serums with some reverb throw printed in here. But I mean, we really went over most of the sounds. Now it's just kind of like when I have things set up the way I do in Serum, it's very easy to take them to that next B section and kind of just adjust that second LFO and start printing and getting, you know, moving things up +3 or +5. So this is a new layer. This is a fun fill. I think the whole group just gets a, oh yeah, we can go over some group processing. EQ. Big glue compressor. Pro Q, which I don't even... Yeah, this is just for the phone preset for this fill. So it's automating the entire Pro Q on. Which is the only thing really making this fill cooler. Everything just comes back in on this kick on 51. How do you know when to release a track, or do you release every track that you finish? I definitely don't release every track I finish. Just the ones I'm really excited about. You'll know. You'll know. It's like gauging by the feedback you get on it as well. Like you can always kind of figure it out. So there's some chants like that. As far as background stuff goes, like I have a simple hat loop, risers from the Virtual Riot Pack, and just offbeat effects and chants and stuff. This has some reduced ambience on it. Yeah, the triplet like Cashmere Toms to match up with the flow of the triplet. Boom. Sorry to re-ask, but why are you letting your basses bleed into your sub-region? Or why is your sub cut lower than usual, like 85 hertz, I think? It doesn't look like I actually let the basses breathe that much. I cut this right at 88 as well. So I just did a super clean, like, here's where the sub starts, here's where the mid basses end. On Rapture, it's an entirely different story. I'm like boosting the low mids and the basses. It's a little weird. Yeah, and then just some gain, some utility gain just for like little fills like here. I think the main things carrying this are like the automation of the Yo-Man. Let's turn the Yo-Man off. That's pretty big. In general, this flow is pretty cool. A lot of stacks here. This is a new layer. A lot of high end. Cool. Any questions on the first drop? And I'll be sure to make sure we can dive into Rapture, even if I go a little over my time. Very similar build up here. We're just using a lot of big bass drop, the thick boy. I think a lot of the same effects and maybe even some added risers and fallers. Just a lot of. This one I won't be able to go over as much because we did this on Wooly's computer. And I just have stems here, so I can go over the processing of this. Let me just turn it all off. I don't think it's that much different. Yeah, just giving it a little bit of added pizzazz. Some more Yo Man, really just to fill up the space when we need it, like here. I do this with ping pong delay a lot too. Ping pong throw. This is also a really cool effect. So let's turn off Yo Man. Basically, I set up like a filter bandpass around like 600 hertz. 30% feedback, and then I can kind of mess with the time and have this locked into fade. And this will also create really cool tails. You can get cool rhythms out of this too, almost like triplety grooves. Or you could go for like a straight tonal delay with more feedback and like. I love how it like pings back and forth. It's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. And there goes my question. Hey, I missed it too. Feel free to fire them off. I'm going to get them all eventually. Aphex Vintage Exciter. I don't use this anymore. I sometimes mess with some of the presets. Sometimes gives me some phasing issues. I know it's like a waves mastering thing. But it sounds good here. Maybe just some saturation will do the trick if you don't have that. Taming the 3 to 4K range. This is a really important range to tame in any basses just because it's where the human hearing is most sensitive. Bass clef, standard, and Valhalla throw. Nothing crazy there. The main thing I would take away from that is that I'm pushing it a bit with the Aphex Vintage Exciter. Brief explanation on the build. Yeah, sure. So I'm sidechaining it. Everything that's not the kick and snare. Kick snare, filtered basses coming in. Elements from the intro flattened and being transposed up in audio or transposed before I flattened them. Rave stabs. All of it's being pitched up. The thick sample. We kind of went over this earlier, so I don't want to spend too much time on it when it's already an hour in. I actually love how this delay sounds here. I like it more than the Yo Man. Do you always high pass per groups rather than individual tracks? I do both. So, any questions on Thick Boy? I think the rest of it is just stems from Wooly. Let's see if there's any more. I can actually open up a fresh. I'm gonna try and open up the Stompy remake. You guys deserve to see the Stompy remake ADG. Fingers crossed. I have a good feeling. Boom, there she is. So it sounds completely different, right? This is going to have this processing here, which is mainly just super basic EQ, small phaser, I'm clipping it pretty hard through this, which I'm getting some added harmonics out of. Trying to get the chat to not scrolling. Do you master these tracks as well? I master them through the buses, which is really just not much. I just make sure they're soft clipping. So I'm getting some added harmonics out of the soft clip. Disperser. Another EQ rolling off some more tops before I really expand it through the OTT. Just a really slight EQ, overdrive, dimension expand to give it some more width. Again, just soft clipping. You can hear the disperser in play when you really start to soft clip it. So that's kind of if people were curious. And then kilohertz stereo. This is all over the place stereo wise, but you do what you do. Also, this final OTT is pretty important for the byte. And then patch wise, probably going to be similar to what I was saying before. A lot of bandpass. Wavetable looks broken. Let's read. No! Why am I getting the worst luck with producing tonight? FFT add. Where is this wavetable? Oh, here. FFT add seconds. So yeah. It looks like I did this and maybe put a comb filter on it or something. Maybe instead of the low pass, we could try like a comb. I like to right click, remove all the modulators, and if you hold down Command or Control on Windows and click all these, it'll reset the parameters for you, which they were all pretty reset anyways, but... Something like this and then flattened, like... Obviously way messier, but I kind of just wanted to give you guys an example of that. Alright, we're busting open Rapture. What instances do you tend to use upward compression versus downward? I use both a lot. That's what OTT is. It'll take the quietest sound and expand it, and the loudest sound and compress it. Compress it. So I tend to use hella both. Sorry guys, I'm missing some stuff, like my chat randomly decided to stop scrolling with me here. Alright, let's bust into this bad boy. I'll be able to go over the intro of this one super quick. Oh, bonus points so anyone that can tell you what FFT stands for. I know this one, but I'll let someone else get it. Fast Fourier transform. I had to get it in there. I'll sneak it in there. So I know one thing about this project. Again, super old project. Zane got it. Good job, Zane. I actually had just downloaded this LSC HTD and just was like kind of fucking with these loops. And like started off working around one of these loops and pretty much just made the whole intro like really quickly and then made the drop. And then I couldn't really remake anything that I liked as much as these. So I just said, fuck it. I don't really ever do that very often. But in this case, I'm using a lot of loops for the intro here. So I'll let this play while I try to fix the chat. The only thing I can note for this that's going to be different, because this is a fucked up version because I had to switch laptops, the pre-drop is like not the Rapture pre-drop. But again, we have as much as we need to kind of break it down.
get your head knocked. And get your head knocked.
So that was like the placeholder vocal I'd used, and I had to change it like super quick because like I made this song and then went to Space Yacht that night and tested it and was like, holy shit, this slams. But like everyone was tweeting at me like, that fucking Getter remix is sick. And I was like, damn it, I just needed a pre-drop to play it out. And then I found the find us on the, yeah, here it is.
Find us on the block.
So I made it out of this.
Find us on the block. Find us on the block. Find us on the block.
I could technically like just drop this in here. Who knows?
Find us on the
You guys get it, right? Cool. So I'm going to really briefly go over the intro because it's mostly just these loops that I fucked with. I really just worked around this one. These are all like for 90 BPM, so I stretched them out and pitched them accordingly. Kind of just worked around this layer, and I even took this progression and made like a re-C version out of it just by putting 3 OTTs and then kind of band passing it. So many people heard that as like diamonds on the block or something. I even just typed in diamonds, so even I'm confused. Some more delay, slapback, just like background vocal chop stuff. Impacts, exhaust. Really, there's nothing special about the intro here. Someone asking about vocal processing. I do love OTT. Like the list of things I'll use on my vocals are like OTT, redux, ping pong delay, manipulator, frequency shifter, little alter boy. Just in sequences of like messing with that and then just like pitching things up and down and layering them, having a really distorted low layer. Like I'm getting some fuzz out of it from the manipulator. And I'll sometimes like pitch one super low and like vocode it and layer that in, but like, and then I like will group them up and usually OTT and mess with those. But yeah, some basic risers here. The classic filter in the sausage drop noise. So this is where you guys are going to hear what I was talking about, where I really let the low mids fly on this one. You can see it here. So just pitching it up inside of the clip and filtering out the high. Taking all of the elements from the intro and just chopping them and some contact loops that are frozen. This is the rave right here. This just has underground rave vibes to it, this whole flow. What do you mainly use vocoder for? What is the general thought process of this? If I want to make something wet, or if the high end is really way too present, you know, it's a really cool way of just making things a little more liquidy, I guess. Yep, a lot of ride. kind of slowly filtering in the pre-drop, which I did with the same thing. Find us on the.
Let the record play and get your head knocked.
So again, there's so many things that are off, but everything is this. I'm gonna unfreeze this and shit's probably gonna go crazy, but I made all of the growls, all of these sounds are all from this one patch. So once I got kind of flows out of it, I just, like so much low mids here. Can we see your build-up drums? Yeah, it's just kicks and snares. Some drum loops. Really, this kind of stuff is simple. Just like use loops, reference someone else's tune if you're having trouble with build-ups. It's like pretty easy to put stuff together. Kind of like building Legos to me. Nice Virtual Riot kick here. Really sharp. No post-processing, but I do have a lot on the group. Also, all these claps are just very lightly processed. So we have this Virtual Riot clap, this clap from my song Servo, the phase 1 clap with all the lows taken out, and another Virtual Riot clap with a little bit of a small room. All together sound like this. On top of the kick sounds like this. And together I just have some transient shaping with a drum bus, full parallel, and then I'm saturating it all in parallel as well, 50%. So without the processing, it sounds like that. There you go. So let's get into the main sound here. This thick ass fucking. Here comes the CPU. Look at the rack. It can't be stopped. The rack that just keeps on giving. So, in this case, like, I really think I made the sound very dull and, like, lacking a lot of high end because I wanted to explode it in the fat rack so much. But I'll show you guys kind of an example, like, how I make a sound like this. Again, it's just FM and I'm taking out a lot of the highs with the bandpass. But you can also take this sound and like, I really want to like duplicate it. So I can show you guys how I would make like a growl on it. But this is a very versatile sound. It's really easy to like, just take this and make it a quarter note. Fucking CPU, man. But, long story short, we can go over the post-processing, but it's really just getting a cool kind of tone out of like, if I take this, Jesus, if I turn the bandpass filter on, the sound just gets so harsh. This was definitely a reference. I was referencing a bad clot sound when I made this. But like, it's just aggressive. I need to freeze it. CPU at 99. I wonder if I can exit out of this. I'm scared it's going to crash the stream. I'm not going to do it. Turn the AC down a little bit. I am here to answer your questions for 70 more %. Hit me with whatever you got. You guys are going to get this voice memo in like 20 minutes because the lag is so bad. Do you find your post-processing is really what shapes your sounds versus sound design? It used to be way more important than it is now, but it's always different. It's 4 p.m. Time for CPU torture. MacBook. Yes, honey. I'm going to start a whole YouTube just for CPU torture. Me just like duplicating the same isotope Isotope ozone on the. How you advise an upcoming dubstep producer to sound different and unique in a sea of very similar dubstep sounding these days? That's a good question. One thing that's really big for me is like hoarding in my catalog, and no matter what I make or how I make it, I save it. If I type in comp, like I'll just have like an endless bank of sounds, and I'm always kind of dipping into these. Even sometimes I'll have one sample in here that I'll use a few times, and then it'll be like the woolly growl, or like it can even be a technique that you find that you do with that people will kind of notice. Like Wales uses a lot of like Melda stuff, Transformer and shit. Like everyone kind of just has that one thing, and you just kind of need to branch out and find a plugin that you like to implement a certain way that gives you a certain timbre, and remember it. And Lakey Music just subscribe to my Twitch. Thanks. I don't know why we're getting notifications for that. Stuff like that, just branching out, find that thing. Like your thing could be putting 4 dispersers before your fat rack and then just stretching the sound out. It takes a lot of experimentation, so it's hard to be like, this is what you have to do. It's more like expand your process of like expand your approach and how you squeeze different timbres out of a sound. Like eventually you'll find little tricks that you like and just keep implementing them. Now the timbre of this is fucked up, but whatever. So one problem I ran into with this sound is that this was way too stereo. Let's put this key map to R. So the sound is completely thinned out. So I just resampled it to audio and pushed this mids really hard with center stereo. Again, look at all of this. I don't know how I got away with this at all. I'm like letting it all through. Don't know why it doesn't sound like shit. It just doesn't. My song Stomp is like this too. So these are the main layers here, besides the I have this guy, which I just looks like tried to manipulate her, didn't work. It's a mid-side EQ. I'm taking all the stereo down and a lot of the high end out, so this just can kind of sit in the middle of the mix, in the like no high end at all. Relatively, I mean, it's still got some high end. In the mids group, we also have this going through, just glue compressor, clip shifter, and volume shaper. There's really nothing going on in the mids. It's just mastering stuff. This is where I would do most of my mastering. And then we have some more from the same patch, just resamples. So these are kind of all rhythmic stuff. And I kind of get a lot of rhythms like these by, using tails and like really shortening the sound. So if we were to pull this whole sound out, it's actually just a shortened version of this that I tucked in to make it like kind of a da 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 da. It's another thing I would have just beatboxed out. What do you do for your variations throughout the drop? I usually like turn things up FM wise or stereo wise. Like in this case, I believe I added a layer. There are also some really subtle glitch layers. And other really small things, like the ch-ch-ch part is just a Virtual Riot glitch that I clipped out super hard. What does the sidechain curve look like? Let me show you. Pretty standard. Someone asked for the effects. Background effects are really simple in this. Let me just turn the mid basses off so you can hear the skeleton. See, the sub is almost mixed to 0. It's just above -6, which is what I normally aim for. Yeah, just a couple hi-hats, chants, and then some like risers. Background synth, virtual riot stuff. A lot of virtual riot stuff in this project. I have no shame about that because, you know, the main sound and, you know, at the end of the day, it's recognized as a Kompany tune for a reason because of like all of these bits. This is a really cool layer here. So I took the same sound and I added this vibrato patch, which is another really cool patch I've used a few times. There's a lot of like delay and room on this. Just like way too much for my CPU to handle. We can check it out anyways. It's just the mechanics squared out, squarified wavetable, one of Virtual Riot's, and a high sync, high octave FM square wave, saw wave with some high notch filtering. And yeah, cutting a lot of the lows out, probably because I'm doing some pretty aggressive fat racky stuff. VR fat rack. Yeah. And I'm actually like turning the bend U to pitch bend all the way to 24 here so I can actually do this big glide. Which is interesting. And I did the same exact pitch bend on the main patch. Which is why it has that like, I don't know, lawnmower starting feel. Yeah, I mix and master my music all myself. This has a cool little rhythmic layer too, this little alien-y sound, which I tamed a lot. Which is like what I said before in regards to layering is something like this, like I'm letting the low mids breathe so much on that main sound that I have to tend to it extra elsewhere because, you know, it'll build up really quick. You don't want build up in the low mids because it's such a hefty area. So again, I'm getting variation here. Someone was asking before for the second 8, how I'm going to get variation out of this. This stayed the same, but I actually resampled it into audio and we did some cool, like, it's cool. This is the goat layer. This is when you don't feed your goats and it's already noon and they're fucking hungry for some hay. No, I just messed with the formants, put it up 2 octaves on Complex Pro. Really just layered that in, and it sounds so goofy.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Goofy by itself, but almost always like when I solo a lot of the layers I add, they sound like really terrible by themselves. And then this guy, which I don't know where this came from. I think this came from the D vibrato patch. So this guy I would also, if I wanted to get like more variation out of this, I could do another like third. So I'm always kind of looking for that third or that fifth or that seventh on the second 8th bar phrasing that can push it. I always feel like when it goes up a little bit, it, did I cut out? Just little techniques like these and just kind of is where the music theory stuff will come into play. What else do we have here? So same stuff here. I actually added a couple more layers to push this second 8. Just noisy comb filter stuff. Really subtle. Again. This is the chonky part. So I took that same bass and just kind of fucked with it in audio until I got this. So, and then I started messing with these other layers, which sound, again, really shitty by themselves. So to clarify, are you doing sound design sessions prior to composition, or are you creating sounds on the fly as you produce and building your sound library as you go? I'm doing both. In this session, I started the project with a massive sound design session and just sat there like on this 13 bass, like just rendering one shots and then messing with the one shots, but also saving the patch as a whole. So if I go to comp knock and it's like a bunch of and then I also have the ADG right here. So it's something along the lines of that, and then just kind of phrasing things out in audio. From this one, I just had another bass in here somewhere. Maybe it's one of these. This one's called Comp. Fucking finally. Oh, this is the bass from before. Same thing, just higher octave saw wave. These are really simple patches. But yeah, together these guys sound like this. No post-processing on here, just and some other yoinky kind of basses. So together. A weird, like, alien layer. I'll usually take glitches and just super fucking blow them out and put them wherever. Usually on like downbeat stuff too, because it's sidechained so hard that I can slam it. How do you get your sub to follow so well even with your clips and audio? Just by like having it in the same rhythm. A lot of the times if you're struggling with this, I'd recommend resampling, putting 2 audio tracks in your template, getting audio directly in from the mids from one, audio directly in from the sub channel on the other, record arm both of these, solo both of these, and record. Boom, you have a visual representation of how you want these to flow. And when you really want to get in here and get your sub relation really tight, you're going to want to go ahead and like do shit like this. Even like, you know, if you really want to be that guy with that perfect kick sub bass relationship, this is how you're going to get it. Voila, chef's kiss. Moving on. Little womp here. So many weird random basses, and like it's not the best look into my workflow because it's such an outdated workflow compared to how I work now, but it's still just like goes to show that you can go nuts and get creative and throw a bunch of shit at the wall and try random fucking layers, and usually you'll get something. Let's check out the master chain. I have washout. I have a utility where I'm doing some width automation. I do this all the time to make the drop super stereo and impactful. Utility. What? Hey, cut it out. Where did that go? I had automation here. Okay. There. So I'm taking the stereo down until it's almost mono, and then it pops back open during the drop. Which is really cool just for added impact of not even just frequency, but like stereo content. I really love the triplets playing on each other, like the into the triplet tom fill. Just triplet accents because it's all like kind of on grid, quarter notes, long bass. You'd be surprised. Have fun with these glitch sessions where you like blow your shit up and just like use these as little accents and downbeats and shit. Just insane, like stretched out. I don't know if what I do is good, but I add a temporary camel crusher on my sub so I can hear it clearly and I go by ear and turn it off after. That's a good idea. You ever add a mid layer to your sub? Sometimes I work with the sub in the mid layer. It's always different. Dubstep is a very fun and creative type of music to write. You can really just let go and fucking slam things in the red and you'll be fine most of the time. Let's check this downbeat. This is a new bass. Oh, these are all resampled from the same. See what kind of post I'm doing on this. This one's super erosioned out, just all high end. Super stereo. This one's just fat as fuck. And this one's all low mids. I don't think I'm actually using... Oh, I am using a sub here. How does... Make it make sense. How do I have this sub here? And here. It's almost like an added harmonic. I also have another background layer here, which sounds like some more like tension. It might just be this. Yeah, it is. Okay. But again, I love resampling and layering like this because I can like fuck with the layers as much as I want. Like, let's do it. Let's get in here. Even this downbeat frequency shifted up 500. Cool. We can do that and then put these down here. And then we have VIP of the VIP. Or we can go real low. You know, it's really fun having layers. You can just go nuts. I'll do shit like this all the time and just crank the transpose on complex and see how it fits as a layer. My song Tied Up that came out on Never Say Die. So much shit like this. Second part, like I could go in and frequency shift and just like take the whole fine tune up. This would be cool with some room. I have this rack that Automate gave me called Useful Basses. It's just some parallel Yo Man and parallel reverb, which I turn up a lot. They're both hitting 0, and then I turned them up another 2 dB. So they're clipping into the master. I like how I say clipping with especially is that you're having so much fun producing, even messing with sounds on the fly in this. Yeah, dude, I love stuff like this. I love mangling and twisting audio. That's why it's like a super fun. But it can also be really hectic when I'm going to break down a project file because I'll get to something like this and be like, I have no idea how I got it to sound like this. Like, to be honest. But This is a really good example of how I would fuck with stuff. Or I would texture warp it and flatten it. Let's make these super long. Texture warp them and stretch them out and then shorten them back up. Flatten this again. Get rid of these clicks. Go like this. It's so fun. Frequency shifted again. It's so, one thing about this workflow is very ear training based. You're going to have to like guess if things are in key. The kick and the clap are being like super compressed together. So yeah, they're all around 0. What are some of your go-to effects automations you use on basses for variation during drops? Frequency shifter, warp modes in Serum, flange filters, just transposing it in general. Stuff like that. I just wish I knew where to start when it comes to sound design. Reverse engineer and figure out what kind of modulations are making what kind of sound. That's what I did. That's how I got good at Serum. I got my hands on a somatic sample pack that had sounds that I wanted to learn how to make. So I went through and I went into Serum. And I went into the matrix. I turned all of these off in the output. Like this is a dry wet for the modulation. And I turned them on one at a time and made note of what this was doing. I moved the filter cutoff of the high pass peak filter and it added vowliness. Okay, write that down. You know, something like that. And then it's just about making a shape with the LFO and making that shape move the parameter that makes the desired effect that you want. It's really just about getting in there and learning how things move around. It's not something that's going to happen without you getting in and getting your hands dirty. So a lot of people are scared of that, but just make shitty sounds. You're going to make shitty sounds for a long ass time. I still make shitty sounds. But, if you guys have any final questions about Rapture or layering or production, I'll answer some more for the next 10 minutes before we wrap up. I feel like can you show using, crystallizer for sure. Let's make a crystallizer layer out of this growl. Oh, this is sick. Look at this EQ I made. This is a cool little scale trick I do. I take some of these stereo EQ presets in Ableton, and I actually automate the scale on them to just do super weird stereo shit. It's almost like a resonator a little bit. I actually journaled my way into sound design, yes, more or less. This is cool. I need to start doing this again. And then some auto filtering just to get more tone and girth and mids out of it. Vowliness. But let's resample this and make a crystallizer layer. You guys start hitting me with some questions. So this obviously has some sidechain printed in. Let's toss a crystallizer on this bad boy. When you DJ, what's your process for chopping or double dropping? I just let it fly. I just find 2 songs in the same key that work and cut the lows on one. Oh, these questions are going fast. I'm sorry if I miss them. A lot of the times when I make a bass, I'm happy until it gets into the track and then it sounds shallow, empty. That's usually a gain staging thing for me or a lack of stereo. or a lack of like mids in general. You should be able to look at the EQ and see if there's a notched, like look for a well-rounded like frequency spectrum on your EQ and just blow it out with saturation. If that doesn't work, then how hard is your master normally pushing before you soft clip? Pretty hard. I push my master harder than normal. So if I'm making a crystallizer layer, the first thing I do, mix all the way up to dry wet because I'm paralleling it. I resampled the dry signal. I'm just going to make a bass out of this. So I want this completely wet. I want the MIDI sync off. And then I start to mess with the splice and delay. I usually put these kind of low. You can see we can get a lot just by automating the splice value. So let's do a little basic. And then, yeah, I just start to mess with pitch values. Here's the trick that nobody knows about Crystallizer. I know Wales uses Crystallizer a shitload, and I showed him this. He's like, bro, I use this plugin so much, I never knew about this. Tweak. You can actually get in here and fuck with a lot of stuff. Start messing with the... Now we're getting some weird shit. In this case, since it's panning around a lot, I would use the utility and solo the left or the right, get a mono signal, and then stereo image it myself. Getting some cool rhythms out of it, though. What's one of the newest sound design tricks you've learned? I haven't learned much new lately, honestly. I just fuck around a lot and mangle audio recently. Like, this is a sick sound. Put some Yo Man top mid on this. Hit it with an OTT. And we have a nice juicy crystallizer layer that we just made out of this. We can get so many different timbres too just by... Yeah. Tweak button is god tier. If I can even just mess with this too. Yeah, good stuff. Resonator? Yeah, I should mess with some resonator. Can we hear some stuff you're working on? Yeah, I could show something on the way out. Resample. I couldn't agree more. Do you just use a low pass filter in the beginning when the main bass? Yes. Yes. Explain stereo imaging. It's so hard to like explain easily. I use simple things like dimension expander, center stereo, kilohertz stereo utility, and just make sure things aren't too wide. Like stereo imaging is just making sure everything has its place, like in the center of the mix, like you're kicking your snare and your sub, and then gradually, you know, things are working their way out where your mids still have some presence in the sides, but they aren't phasing. It's a lot. You'd probably better off like watching a whole hour-long video on that. If you had to drop one more workflow tip, what would you say? My main workflow tip. Committing to things you're working on and not sitting and working on the same bass patch for a while. Like resample the bass patch and start making the bass sicker by like adding cool layers on the sides or something, you know, like a lot of the times I start with a really simple sound that if I sat there working on that one sound, like I wouldn't have gotten much out of it. But instead, if I were to have like duplicated and made a crystallizer layer, like now together I have Then I can start fucking with this a lot, you know? Then I'm moving forward with the sound. Like, this has just got the weirdest timbre, but it just, like, fits with this growl now. So without the crystallizer layer, with the crystallizer layer. So, I don't know. Stuff like that's pretty important for me. Any mid-side EQing tips? Yeah, just get rid of all of the lows in the sides whenever you can. You can do this with bass mono and utility. This is a really important mixing tip, actually. Usually up to like 250, 300, you can cut all of the lows out of your sides. It's not really audible. It's just taking up space anyways. I don't really have time to show how I would make glitches with Portal, but I have a lot of videos like that on like my YouTube and my Twitch if you go check those out. Cool, so I'm going to find a little like, I don't know, like a whip or something. So I can show you guys some stuff I'm working on. I'll show you guys this Jiqui collab I'm working on. Jiqui? Kompany? Hello? Jiqui? But I hope you guys enjoyed the workshop. I'm like fried from talking so much because I cannot fucking talk that much. Like my mouth gets so dry. I should have brought some water in here. Spouting off. This one's really cool. This is a lot of layering and audio manipulation shit, but I'm really stoked on where this one's going. Intro needs some work still. I have to add the stems he sent to me, but hope you guys enjoy. Yeah, this part where it like goes into the chang boom chang boom. A little Reese fill too. When we made this, we were super. There's like 9 or 10 bass layers going on for each like one bass phrasing. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I feel like we got a bunch of information out. Stereo imaging soon. Yeah, there's a lot of really sick tutorials on stereo imaging. It's like pretty in depth to get into. For subs like those, Matthew, I tend to make sure I do them super parallel, or I'll like distort white noise and like print it and like, you know, make layers of the distorted white noise and like layer this in with my sub to get extra harmonics. Yeah, crazy stuff. But again, thank you guys so much. I'll be ending the stream now. I hope you learned some cool shit. Keep grinding, keep working. Don't stress the writer's block. Just get in there and create. That's the best advice I can give you right now. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. I'm going to go build my PC and play some video games. See you later.